The television is on. You're not really watching it. You're on your back on a mattress on the floor, one arm behind your head, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looks like a hand reaching for something just out of frame. The room smells like the pine tree air freshener plugged into the wall beside the dresser and the faint ghost of whatever your cousin heated up in the microwave 3 hours ago. The mattress has a spring that digs into your left shoulder blade if you shift wrong, so you have learned not to shift. The television is a 32-inch Vizio with a cracked corner held together with black electrical tape. The channel is whatever your cousin had it on when he left. A music video ends. The screen goes to a static graphic like the channel's logo over black, and a chiron scrolls across the bottom. You read the name, you read the word after the name. You look back at the water stain on the ceiling, you don't know what you feel exactly. It isn't grief, not really, not the kind that hits you physically. It's something closer to the feeling of hearing a song you already know coming from a car down the block, recognition without surprise. A fact landing in a place that was already shaped to receive it. The world has been teaching you this lesson for as long as you can remember, in the background, like weather. Some men make the music, and then the music is all that's left. That's just what happens. On the floor next to the mattress is a composition notebook, black and white marbled cover, spine cracked from being folded back on itself too many times. You've been filling it since you were in middle school. Bars, half-finished hooks, lines you wrote at 2 a.m. that looked like genius until morning showed you they weren't, though sometimes they were. About a third of the pages are full. The rest are waiting. You don't reach for it tonight. You look at the ceiling, until the water stain stops looking like anything. The chiron keeps scrolling. The television stays on. It's 6 months later, and you're in a barber's chair getting your edges cleaned up on a Saturday afternoon when someone says it. The clippers stop. Not just your barbers. All of them, simultaneously, like someone pulled a plug. The shop has maybe 8 people in it, and for a moment none of them make a sound, which almost never happens in a barbershop, which is a place built specifically for noise, for overlap, for the productive chaos of men in proximity. The silence is loud in the specific way that silences are loud when everyone in a room decides to keep something inside at the same moment. The television mounted in the corner, permanently tuned to a music channel, sound perpetually just slightly too low to hear, has cut to a static graphic. The same logo, the same black background. Your barber is a man in his late 30s named Curtis, who has hands that do not shake. He is holding the clippers, and the clippers are running, and he is not moving. He is looking at the screen with an expression you don't have a word for yet, though you will later. It is the expression of a man absorbing something his body already knew before his brain got the information. He says quietly, to no one specifically, he had more songs he hadn't even dropped yet. Nobody responds. The clippers resume. The shop reanimates slowly, like a held breath released in stages. The conversation that follows is the conversation you have heard before. The name, the city, the circumstances, the disbelief that arrives on schedule and exits on schedule. By the time Curtis finishes your shape-up, the shop is already back to normal. The machine resets, it always resets, but you keep hearing what Curtis said. He had more songs he hadn't even dropped yet. You can't explain why. That specific detail is the one that finds a crack in you when the name and the date and the place did not. Something about the unfinished work. Something about all that music still sitting somewhere, waiting for a voice that isn't coming back to finish it. You pay your $15. You walk home in the afternoon light and you don't put your earbuds in, which is something you almost never do. 3 months after that, you are in your room with the notebook open on the floor in front of you, and you are doing something you have never done before. You are writing in the margins. Not your own bars. You have a whole system for those, a specific pen, a specific section, but annotations, arguments, questions. You have been going line by line through verses you have memorized since you were old enough to memorize anything. And you are trying to figure out how they work. Not what they mean, how they work. The mechanics of a line that hits so hard it rearranges something in you every time. How do you build something that does that? What are the actual materials? The annotations are in blue ballpoint, different from the black you use for your own writing. They fill the margins in a different handwriting, smaller, more tentative, less certain of itself. Your own bars are declarative, These are questions. You are learning to write by reading someone so carefully it hurts. You don't think about the water stain. You don't think about the chyron. You think about craft. This is what being young enough does. It metabolizes grief into fuel with an efficiency that would be impressive if it weren't so ruthless. You are not ignoring the loss. You are converting it. It is the only productive thing you know how to do with it. You write until your hand cramps. You close the notebook. The spring in the mattress finds your shoulder blade. You sleep. March comes. You hear it on the radio on the way to school in your aunt's Civic with the passenger window that won't fully close. There's always a thin whistle of wind in that car, underneath whatever's playing, a cold thread you've learned to ignore. The DJ says the name and your aunt turns the volume up without looking at you, without saying anything, and you ride the rest of the way to school in silence while the song plays all the way through. 3 minutes and 53 seconds. The whistle of cold air underneath it the whole time. At your locker, someone tells you as though you haven't already heard, as though information needs to be delivered person to be real. You say you know. You turn back to your locker. Down the hallway, the current of people keeps moving, sneakers on linoleum, lockers slamming, the specific indifferent momentum of a school morning. Nobody stops. The hallway does not hold a moment of silence. This is not a criticism. It is just the truth. The world moves at the same speed regardless. You know the numbers by now. You are doing arithmetic you never asked to learn. 25. 24. 6 months apart. Both of them at the exact moment when the work was becoming undeniable, not at the beginning, not in obscurity, but right at the threshold where the music was reaching people who hadn't been looking for it. Right when the name meant something beyond the neighborhood that already knew it. You file this away without fully understanding why. It feels like a pattern. You're not sure yet what kind. Life After Death came out 16 days after he died. Double album, 24 tracks, debuted at number 1. He was 24 years old and he never heard it played on the radio as a living man. You think about that more than you think about the circumstances of the death itself, more than you think about the beef and the cities and the politics of it. You think about the specific cruelty of finishing the work and not getting to hear it land. An album titled for the thing that happened before it could be celebrated. The unfinished verse, except the verse was finished and the man still didn't make it. You go to class. You take notes on something. You don't remember what. 5 years go by in the way years go when you're working too hard and sleeping too little, and the work is not yet paying what you need it to pay, but it is paying something. Slowly, in the accumulation of small validations that keep you from quitting. You write constantly. You fill notebooks at a rate that surprises even you. 1 every 2 months, sometimes faster. The black and white marbled covers piling up on the shelf above your desk. In the apartment you now share with 2 other people who are also trying to make something out of nothing. The composition notebooks are the one thing you spend money on, without guilt. You get into rooms. Not as the artist, not yet. As the guy willing to show up and stay quiet and carry things and learn. You write hooks for people. You contribute to sessions where your name will not appear on anything. This is the apprenticeship that nobody advertises, the one that costs you years before it costs you money, and you are paying it without complaint because the alternative is not making the music, and that is not actually an option you are capable of choosing. The first real studio you get into, not a home setup, not a bedroom with acoustic foam stapled to the walls, but an actual room with an SSL console and the kind of monitors that make the bass feel like weather. You go at 9 at night and leave at 4 in the morning. The producer barely acknowledges you for the first 3 hours. The console has 96 channels. The soundproofing foam on the walls is dark gray, cut in precise wedges. There's a bowl of Skittles on the console that nobody touches all night. The room smells like the specific combination of cool air conditioning and years of use. The faint mineral smell of equipment run hot and cool down thousands of times. You pull the notebook out of your jacket pocket during a break, not to perform the action of being a writer. Because there is a line forming in your head, and if you don't catch it, it evaporates. The producer glances at the notebook and says nothing. He goes back to the console. You write the line. You close the notebook. At 4 in the morning on the train home, you see the news on your phone. A rapper, young, a city you know, shot outside a club, 26 years old. He had a single that had been getting real traction for about 3 weeks. The timing. Always the timing. That is the thing that keeps finding a new angle to enter you. No matter how many times you've absorbed this information, not the violence itself. You understand violence. You grew up adjacent to it. It is not abstract to you. The timing. Right as the work starts to reach. Right as the name starts to circulate in rooms where it wasn't known before. As though the moment of arrival is also the moment of maximum exposure. As though becoming visible and becoming a target happen in the same motion. You look at the notebook in your lap. You open it to the page with the line you just wrote. The ink is barely dry. You look at it for a long time. You close the notebook. The train moves through a dark tunnel. The fluorescent light overhead hums at a frequency slightly too high to be comfortable. A sound you have learned to tune out so completely that you only notice it when the train stops and the hum goes with it. You don't write anything else that night. You are 21 and then you are 23, and then you are halfway through your 24th year and the names keep coming the way news keeps coming, which is to say they come and they are absorbed and the world keeps moving and you keep moving with it, because stopping is not something you have the architecture for. XXXTentacion is 20 years old in a parking lot in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Pop Smoke is 20 years old in a house in the Hollywood Hills that he had been in for less than 2 weeks. A house where the address had been visible online, where the visibility that was supposed to be the reward became the mechanism of exposure. Mac Miller is 26 in his Studio City home, 5 weeks after swimming, and swimming was among the finest things he'd ever made, and 5 weeks is not enough time, and no time would have been enough time. And Circles came out after, completed by his producer from the unfinished sessions, John Bryan working from what Mac left behind, building the completed thing around the absence at its center. The unfinished sessions, every time. The work that outlasts the man. Juice WRLD is 21 at Midway Airport in Chicago in December, and by the time you hear about it, the machinery of canonization is already running. The streaming numbers climbing, the tributes accumulating, the algorithms surfacing the catalog for people who'd never listened before. Someone tells you later that he recorded so constantly, so compulsively, that the archive left behind is enormous. Hundreds of songs, possibly more, a body of work produced at a pace that suggests he knew something about time that most people don't know until it's too late. You don't verify the number, you believe the principle. You are at a house party when someone projects his videos on the living room wall. A white bedsheet tacked up over the window, the image slightly overexposed the way projectors always make things, his face larger than life in the flickering light. The bass from the speaker is still going underneath, people are dancing in front of his image. It is not disrespectful, it is the opposite of disrespectful. It is the culture doing the only thing it knows how to do with grief, which is keep moving, keep making, keep the music playing. A woman you don't know standing next to you with a cup in her hand says, "He had so many unfinished songs. They said he used to just record like he had to get it all out, like he knew." You say nothing, you drink from your cup. The notebook is at home, on your desk, and you are aware of its absence the way you are sometimes aware of the absence of a coat when the temperature drops. A physical consciousness of a thing that isn't present. You step outside because the room has gotten warm and loud and you need the cold for a minute. Someone offers you a cigarette, you take it even though you don't smoke. You light it and don't really pull on it. Just let it burn down, the ash growing long off the end. The cold air is the specific smell of a city at night in winter, exhaust and something organic underneath it, the smell of ground that has absorbed a lot of rain. You stand there and the cigarette burns. You think about Pop Smoke's address being visible online. You think about the way the industry built the machine to monetize the grief almost before the grief was finished being felt. You think about the fact that the house, the actual physical house, the thing that was supposed to be the reward for all of it, became the site of the thing that ended it, the domestic space. The place where you are supposed to be beyond the reach of what shaped you, except the reach doesn't stop at the threshold. You understand that now with a precision you didn't have 5 years ago. The perimeter keeps shrinking. It shrinks exactly in proportion to how big the name gets. The cigarette burns down to your fingers, you drop it, you go back inside, you are 27 and you have a single out. This is not a figure of speech, and it is not a small thing. It is a real thing. A produced, mixed, mastered, distributed piece of music with your name on it, available on every platform, with cover art you approved in a process that took longer than the actual recording. It is doing modestly well. Not a hit, a thing that people are sharing person to person, a thing that got you a conversation with a management company and a producer who returned your call the same day, which is not something producers do unless they mean it. You are in a good period. You should be able to feel that clearly, and you mostly can. It is 5 in the morning, and you cannot sleep. This is not insomnia exactly. It's the specific wakefulness that comes from a brain that won't stop processing, that keeps turning things over, looking for the angle you missed. You are sitting at the kitchen table in your apartment. The apartment is yours alone now. A one-bedroom in a building with thin walls through which you can hear your upstairs neighbor's television most nights. The kitchen table has a coffee ring on it that has been there since you moved in. The overhead light hums at a frequency not unlike the train. Your notebook is open on the table. Your phone is face up next to it. On the phone is a voice memo you recorded 11 days ago. You remember the session. You had a beat you loved, a specific chord progression that suggested something to you emotionally that you hadn't quite named yet. And you sat down with it and recorded a hook and the first verse and most of the second verse, and then ran out of momentum, ran out of the particular energy that makes the words come, and stopped. You meant to go back to it. You haven't gone back to it. You open the memo. The waveform appears on the screen. The visual record of your own voice, the peaks and valleys of what you said, ending abruptly partway through. You press play and listen to yourself. The hook is good. The first verse is good. The second verse builds to a line and then trails off, and the beat keeps going for 8 more seconds before the recording stops. The trailing off is audible. You can hear the moment you ran out. You stop the playback, you pick up the pen. You look at the open notebook page and you do something you have not consciously done before. You write a list. It starts as something else. A note about the song structure, a thought about where the second verse needs to go, but it becomes a list before you have decided to make it one. The names, the ages, Tupac at 25, Biggie at 24, Mac Miller at 26, XXXTentacion at 20, Pop Smoke at 20, Juice WRLD LD at 21. You stop writing when you realize what you are doing. You are checking your age against theirs. You are 27. You've outlived most of them. You sit with that for a moment. It is not comfort. It is a specific kind of vertigo, the feeling of having walked through a door without knowing the door was there, of being on the other side of a threshold you didn't know you were approaching. You are 27 and you have a single out and a manager conversation and a producer who returns your calls, and somewhere in the back of your mind, for the first time, all of these facts are connected in a way you have been avoiding connecting them. The visibility, the reach, the threshold where the name starts to mean something in rooms where it wasn't known before. That is the through line. You see it clearly now sitting at your kitchen table at 5 in the morning with a list of names and ages in your notebook handwriting. It was never exclusively about the streets, though the streets were real and the danger was real. It was never exclusively about the beefs, though the beefs were real. It was never exclusively about the drugs, though the drugs were real and took some of them in ways that had nothing to do with violence. It was about the intersection, the specific convergence, the moment the work reaches far enough to make the man undeniable. And the moment of being undeniable is also the moment of maximum exposure, maximum attention, maximum risk from every direction simultaneously. The industry extracting value from above. The streets refusing to release you from below. The distance between where you came from and where you're arriving closing fast, and closing in ways that don't feel like progress. You think about the unfinished albums, the posthumous releases, the voice memos and the notebooks and the half-written verses that became the raw material for the machine to keep running after the man stopped. The industry does not need you to be alive to profit from you. In some configurations, it prefers you aren't. Because death freezes a catalog at its peak, stops the artist from releasing something that underperforms, transforms the body of work into a monument that cannot be diminished by a bad year or a creative left turn. The ghost is more manageable than the man. You think about all the unfinished things. The sessions that stopped mid-verse, the notebooks that never got to their last page, you look at the open notebook on the table, you look at the voice memo waveform on your phone buzzes, the screen lights up with your manager's name. It is 5 in the morning, which means he is either on the West Coast or he does not sleep, and you know which one it is. You let it ring. It stops. A text comes through. Big news, call me when you're up. 500 cab venue, tickets moving, let's talk. You put the phone face down on the table. You sit with the kitchen, the hum of the overhead light, the thin sound of a television from upstairs, the coffee ring on the table, the window going from black to the very first gray at the edges, the city outside beginning its early machinery, a delivery truck somewhere, the distant compression of brakes, a bird making a sound that doesn't belong to winter but is making it anyway. You think about something Curtis said in the barbershop years ago with the clippers running and going nowhere. He had more songs he hadn't even dropped yet. You have thought about that sentence more times than you can count. It found a crack in you that day and never fully closed. The unfinished work. The thing cut short before it got to be what it was becoming. That is the grief underneath all the other grief. Not the man, though the man, always the man, but the music that wasn't there yet, the music that existed in some form only the man could access. That goes with him when he goes, that no estate and no archive and no posthumous release can fully reconstruct because the essential ingredient was always the living mind that knew how to complete it. You open the notebook to a new page, you hold the pen. There is a long moment where nothing happens. The overhead light hums, the city outside moves into its early gray, the coffee ring on the table does not change. The pen is in your hand and the page is blank and the voice memo on your phone is still unfinished, the waveform ending mid-bar, your own voice trailing off above a beat that kept going for 8 seconds after you stopped. You pick up the phone, you open the memo, you press record. The waveform begins, a thin red line that pulses with the room sound, with your breathing, with the ambient hum of the building. You look at the open notebook page. You look at the list of names you wrote, the ages, the arithmetic you never asked to learn. You look at the blank page below the list. You start to speak. Not because you have solved anything, not because you have found a way through the pattern or around it or above it, not because you believe, with the certainty you used to have, that being good enough will protect you. You know better now. You have known better for years. The talent is not armor. The work is not a shield. The notebook's full of annotated verses and finished bars and the voice memos and the single with your name on it, and the manager and the producer and the 500 cap venue with 300 tickets already sold. None of it is a guarantee. None of it closes the gap between the music reaching and the man surviving. You record anyway. You record because the alternative, the closed notebook, the stopped memo, the pen put down, is not actually an alternative. It is just a different kind of ending, quieter and slower and entirely self-authored, and you did not come this far to write that particular story. You record because the work is the thing you are, not merely the thing you do. And you understand the difference now in a way you did not when you were lying on a mattress on the floor watching a Chiron scroll across a cracked television screen. You record because of every name on that list, not in spite of them, because of them. Because they showed you, collectively at enormous cost, what the work costs and what it's worth, and what it means to put it into the world with full knowledge of what the world is. The red line pulses. Your voice fills the room. Outside, the city finishes waking up. The light through the kitchen window goes from gray to the first thin gold. The delivery truck moves on. The bird keeps going, improbable and indifferent to the season. The notebook is open. The page below the list is no longer blank. The memo keeps recording. Some of the names in this story left more music unheard than most artists make in a lifetime. The notebooks don't disappear with the man. Neither does the question of what you do with what you have while you still have it. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.